Hello and welcome. Before we get into today's stories, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Also, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. April 25th, 2005. The morning rush in Amagasaki, Japan was alive with its usual rhythm. Commuters pouring into stations, trains sliding in and out with clockwork precision. Among them was train 5418M, a 7-car commuter service on the Fukuchiyama line, leaving Takarazuka station at 9:03 a.m. It was late. Not by much, just 15 seconds. But in Japan's world-renowned rail system, where seconds matter, even this was already a blemish. The man at the controls was 23-year-old Ryujiro Takami, a young driver with only a year of experience on the line. Earlier that morning, he had committed a small but costly mistake, passing a red signal at low speed, forcing the train's automatic brakes to slam on and bring everything to a halt. That error had pushed him behind schedule, and Takami now carried the weight of that failure as he pressed forward. Every decision he made from here on would be shaped by the company culture he worked under, a culture that demanded perfection and punished mistakes with humiliation. As the train sped on, the delay grew worse. Ikeda station was overcrowded, and the rush of passengers took longer than expected to board. By the time the doors closed, Takami was nearly a full minute late. For most of the world's railway systems, a 60-second delay is meaningless. But in JR West, this was unacceptable. Every second mattered. Takami, rattled and desperate, pushed the train harder. He was chasing time, trying to claw back those lost seconds, even as alarms in his cab warned him of excessive speed. The line between discipline and disaster was already beginning to blur, and Takami was about to cross it. Japan's rail system is famous worldwide for its precision. A train being late by even a minute is rare, and delays are usually measured in seconds. To outsiders, this punctuality might seem almost obsessive, but in Japan it was considered a matter of national pride. The West Japan Rail Company, or JR West, had inherited this culture after the breakup of Japan's state-owned rail system. Their trains were expected to arrive on the dot, no excuses. On busy commuter lines like the Fukuchiyama line, even the smallest slip could ripple across the schedule, affecting thousands of passengers. This strict environment bred immense pressure on drivers. At JR West, being late by more than 30 seconds wasn't just a mark against you, it could mean punishment. Drivers who overshot platforms or caused delays risked being pulled off their trains and sent to what the company called day shift education. On paper, this sounded like retraining. In reality, it was closer to humiliation. Employees would be forced to spend days or even weeks cutting grass, pulling weeds, cleaning toilets, or copying company policies by hand. They might face verbal abuse from supervisors, be docked pay, and worst of all, never know when they'd be allowed back on duty. For young drivers like 23-year-old Ryujiro Takami, the fear of being disciplined was ever present. He had already been through the process once before. To be sent back again would not only be embarrassing, but also damaging to his career. This fear loomed large over every decision he made that morning. What might have been a simple mistake in any other country, a late departure, a minor overshoot, was, in JR West's world, a potential career disaster. And Takami knew it. By the time train 5418M reached Tatami Station, driver Takami was already rattled. He had overshot the platform by the length of 3 carriages, a blunder that had to be reported. Embarrassed and panicked, he called the conductor at the rear of the train, suggesting that they downplay the mistake and say it was only 1 carriage. The conductor refused, bluntly telling him he was driving too fast. For Takami, the humiliation of another reprimand loomed large. Determined to claw back lost time, he pushed the train harder than ever. As the train raced toward Amagasaki, it hit 116 kilometers per hour, dangerously high for the tight curve just before the station. Takami must have realized the danger because he briefly applied the service brake. But he didn't dare pull the emergency brake. Doing so would require a formal explanation to his superiors an admission that he had been speeding, and likely another round of day shift education. In the split second when decisive action might have saved lives, fear of punishment held him back. At 9:18 a.m, the train entered the curve. The front two cars slammed off the tracks and ploughed directly into a nearby apartment building. The force crushed the lead cars beyond recognition, killing everyone inside, including Takami. The remaining 5 cars twisted and piled into each other, leaving hundreds of passengers trapped, injured, and screaming for help. What should have been a routine Monday morning commute had, in seconds, turned into Japan's deadliest rail disaster in decades, all because of a 90-second delay. The derailment shook the city of Amagasaki like an earthquake. Locals who lived near the tracks heard a deafening crash, followed by a grinding roar as steel tore through concrete. Within moments, people were rushing toward the apartment building, horrified by what they saw. Train cars mangled like tin foil, passengers pinned inside, and smoke rising from the wreck. Inside the building's parking garage, the train had demolished several cars, spilling gasoline everywhere. Rescuers couldn't use tools that sparked, like saws or torches, for fear of igniting an explosion. That meant the work of freeing victims was painstakingly slow. Residents began pulling the less severely injured out through broken windows and doors, while the most critical cases were carried on stretchers to waiting ambulances. When ambulances ran out, taxis, police cars, and even flatbed trucks were commandeered to ferry survivors to hospitals. The Japanese self-defense force joined the effort, digging through wreckage and helping stabilize the collapsed parts of the building. Emergency workers could hear cries for help from inside the crushed lead cars, but reaching them was almost impossible. Hours of desperate work followed as rescuers fought both the clock and the unstable wreckage. Of the roughly 700 people aboard, 107 would not survive, including everyone in the first 2 cars. Another 562 were injured, many left with life-changing disabilities. The survivors would later describe scenes of terror, people trapped in darkness, packed so tightly they couldn't move, calling out the names of loved ones or simply begging to be saved. By evening, the full scale of the disaster was becoming clear. It wasn't just a train crash, it was a national tragedy, one that left Japan questioning how a network so famous for its safety and punctuality could produce devastation on this scale. As the smoke cleared and the rescue ended, attention turned to the question everyone was asking: how could this have happened? The train had been travelling far too fast, 116 kilometers per hour, on a curve with a posted limit of just 70. All evidence pointed to driver error, but why would a 23-year-old, fit and healthy, with no medical conditions, push his train so recklessly? Investigators soon discovered the answer wasn't simply about speed, it was about fear. Employees who made mistakes were pulled from duty and subjected to humiliating menial tasks, weeding gardens, cleaning toilets, or copying company manuals by hand for hours. Some were verbally abused, some even had their pay docked. Nobody knew how long the punishment would last. Weeks, sometimes months. And it hung over employees like a threat to their career. Takami had already been disciplined once before. Facing the prospect of being sent back for more education, he likely panicked. Investigators concluded that he had been trying desperately to claw back the 90-second delay, running the train at near maximum speed and ultimately losing control on the curve. In his final seconds, he applied the service brake but not the emergency brake. Why? Because pulling the emergency lever would have required him to justify it to superiors, exposing the fact that he had been speeding. His fear of the company's punishment culture, combined with his inexperience, likely sealed his fate, and tragically, the fate of 106 others. It's just after midnight at a packed movie theatre in Aurora, Colorado. The long-awaited Dark Knight Rises premiere has everyone buzzing. Families, couples, comic fans, all gathered for a night of fun. But in the front row sits a young man with dyed orange hair, silently watching the opening scenes. 20 minutes in, he stands up, exits through the emergency door and disappears into the night. Moments later, he returns, dressed head to toe in tactical armour, gas mask on, weapons in hand. The first thing people see is a flash of smoke, then gunfire. Within seconds, a joyful night becomes a scene of chaos and terror. That man is James Holmes, and this is the story of how one brilliant, quiet boy from sunny San Diego became the face of one of the most haunting mass shootings in modern US history. James Egan Holmes was born on December the 13th, 1987, into what looked like the perfect life in San Diego, California, a city of beaches, sunshine, and endless opportunity. His father, Robert, was a mathematician and scientist with degrees from Stanford and Berkeley. His mother, Arlene, was a registered nurse. Growing up in the Oak Hills community, James had every advantage: a stable home, good schools, and parents who deeply valued education. From a young age, his intelligence stood out. He built websites before he turned 12, tinkered with electronics, and amazed teachers with how quickly he understood complex topics. He was shy, sure, but not withdrawn. Teachers described him as sweet, quiet, but incredibly smart. He had friends, a loving sister, and seemed set for a bright future. But by the time puberty hit, something inside James began to crack. As a teenager, James began seeing things that weren't there, what he called nail ghosts, hammering in the walls. He told his parents about flashes of fire, explosions, and burning buildings. For a boy his age, it was terrifying. His parents tried to help, but both came from scientific medical backgrounds. They focused on practical steps, not feelings. Therapy wasn't something they really talked about. When the family moved to Rancho Peñasquitos, James lost what little social comfort he had. The local kids didn't welcome him, and he retreated into his room, finding escape in video games, especially Warcraft 3. His mother even went door to door asking neighbours if their kids would hang out with him, but nobody really connected with James. By high school, his isolation was complete. He was bright and athletic, tall, lean, and even ran cross-country, but emotionally he was detached. His coach once said that James couldn't even stand close enough for team photos. He graduated with honours in 2006 and seemed ready for college life. But whatever darkness had started in him never really went away. Studied neuroscience. He was brilliant, but socially he was almost invisible. Co-workers from his summer job described him as staring at walls for minutes at a time. He wasn't cruel or rude, just completely withdrawn. Still, he managed to graduate in 2010 and went on to pursue a PhD in neuroscience at the University of Colorado in Aurora. There he rented a small one-bedroom apartment and tried to build a life again. He even signed up for dating sites, desperate for connection after years of isolation. To his surprise, in 2011 he met a girl from his biology class. She was intrigued by his intelligence and dry humour. They started dating, watching Saturday Night Live, going to Ethiopian restaurants, sharing Slurpees from the corner store. For a while, it almost looked normal. But his strange behaviour, flat jokes, awkward silence, made the relationship difficult. They broke up by early 2012. That breakup would become a major turning point. After the relationship ended, James sought help from the campus psychiatrist, Dr. Lynn Fenton. Over 3 months, he visited her 7 times. He told her about seeing shadows with guns whenever he closed his eyes. He spoke of violent imagery without any trace of emotion. He admitted to thinking about mass killings, even having vague plans to carry one out. Dr. Fenton was alarmed, but legally her hands were tied. Since James never mentioned specific victims or a set plan, she couldn't break confidentiality or call police. Behind the scenes, his grades were plummeting. The university was preparing to expel him, but he dropped out before they could act. Alone, unemployed, and mentally unravelling, James stopped taking his medication and spent his days locked in his apartment. And that's when his mind shifted from fantasy to planning. By late May 2012, James Holmes began preparing for something terrible. He bought 3 firearms, a Glock pistol, a Remington 870 shotgun, and a Smith & Wesson M and P15 assault rifle. Over the next few weeks, he ordered thousands of rounds of ammunition, body armour, gas canisters, and tear gas grenades. He kept a notebook, a disturbing manifesto, filled with writings about life, death, and his own madness. In it, he called himself a uniquely mad mind and wrote, "Life's fallback solution to all problems is death." He listed mental illnesses he believed he had: schizophrenia, dysphoric mania, anxiety, narcissism, psychosis. His thoughts swung between guilt, rage, and hopelessness. In July, he mailed the notebook to Dr. Fenton, his former psychiatrist, but it never reached her. It sat, undelivered, in the campus mailroom. If it had arrived in time, this story might have ended differently. On July 20th, 2012, James Holmes drove to the Century 16 movie theatre in Aurora for the midnight premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. He bought a ticket, sat in the front row, and watched the previews like everyone else. 20 minutes into the film, he slipped out the side exit and propped the door open with a table wedge. Outside, he changed into full tactical gear, gas mask, helmet, ballistic vest and gloves. Then, with techno music blaring through his headphones, he returned through the exit and tossed a tear gas grenade into the theatre. Panic erupted. As the smoke filled the room, James opened fire, first with the shotgun, then with the assault rifle. 76 shots later, 12 people were dead and 70 others wounded. Outside, chaos consumed the parking lot. Police arrived within 90 seconds, and amidst the confusion, James quietly walked back to his car and surrendered. He told officers he'd booby-trapped his apartment with bombs and gasoline canisters, and he had. It took a robot team to disarm them. James Holmes was charged with 24 counts of first-degree murder, 140 counts of attempted murder, and one for illegal possession of explosives. His defense claimed insanity. Prosecutors argued sanity, pointing to his months of careful planning. During trial, his infamous notebook was presented as evidence. It showed that Holmes had considered other attack sites, an airport, a mall, before choosing a theatre. He wrote about fear turning to hatred and titled one page, "A Dark Knight Rises." In August 2015, after a long and emotional trial, the jury found James Holmes guilty on all charges. He was sentenced to 12 consecutive life sentences, plus over 3,300 years in prison, without parole. He's now serving that sentence at USP Allenwood in Pennsylvania. A memorial now stands in Aurora, honouring the 12 lives lost that night. Jonathan Blunk, Jesse Childress, Jessica Garvey, John Larimer, Veronica Sullivan, Alexander Boyk, Gordon Cowden, Matthew McQuinn, Michaela Medic, Alex Sullivan, Alex Tevez, and Rebecca Wingo. The Aurora shooting reignited debates about gun control and mental health laws, and it still echoes today. This case is one of the hardest to sit through, not just for the loss of life, but because it shows the cracks in the system. Dr. Fenton saw the danger, but legally, she couldn't act. It's a tragic reminder that sometimes we recognize the monster before it acts, but by the time the system catches up, it's already too late.
And I'm going to try to answer questions for you.
Answer that.
Are they both dead?
Yeah.
One person is deceased. We know that.
Which one?
We don't know names right now. What would really help us is there another person? Who's this other person?
So here's the thing. There's this quiet hotel in Bedford, New Hampshire. You know, the kind of place you'd expect to find people just chilling after a long day. Peaceful, no drama, just relaxation. But one evening, it all went completely sideways. It's August 21st, 2021. The clock says around 4:30 p.m. when two guys check in. Nathan Cashman, who is 28 years old, and Theodore Lucky, 42 years old. At first, everything seems fine. But, and this is where it gets weird, one of them is hiding something much darker under the surface. Not long after they check in, something starts going down. A guest in room 312 hears this loud, frantic voice in the hallway, someone screaming for help. The cries are desperate, urgent, then footsteps, followed by banging on the walls. Now, the guest doesn't open the door but knows something's way off. Most people are trying to ignore it, stay in their rooms hoping it'll stop. But the security cameras are catching everything, capturing Theodore and Nathan at the end of the hall. And it's clear Theodore is chasing Nathan. And get this, he's got a weapon, a huge machete. The guest who managed to witness this quickly ducks back into their room and try to call the front desk. But for some reason, they can't get through. Theodore's not giving up. He's still chasing Nathan, still holding the machete. Inside, Nathan's still calling for help. He's panicked, and Theodore's relentless. A hotel worker finally gets 911 on the phone, but this whole thing's happening so fast it's almost impossible to keep up. It only lasts about 4 minutes, but those 4 minutes, they feel like an eternity. After trying many guests' doors at the hotel, only to find them locked, Nathan jumped out of a window trying to escape. He's hurt from the fall, but he's not done yet. He's still trying to get away. And that's when Theodore catches up, right outside. Nathan's barely able to move when Theodore stands behind him and he strikes. Once, then again, and again. It's over quickly. Nathan dies from his injuries. And Theodore? He bolts. Gone in an instant. By the time the cops show up, it's too late for Nathan. An autopsy later confirms what everyone feared. He died from multiple injuries. And Theodore? Well, he somehow managed to slip away, but not for long. Then, out of nowhere, his mum calls. And here's the twist. Theodore confesses to her. He's panicked, saying he killed someone. She's completely shocked. It's hard to even imagine what she's feeling, and she tells the cops that her son's had a lot of issues in the past. She's devastated, heartbroken, angry, but she has no idea how to process it. A little while later, Theodore calls again. This time he's ready to turn himself in. No fight, no running, just done. The police arrest him without any trouble. In the interrogation room, Theodore opens up.
Finish, and then we can kind of go back into it, and I'm going to try to answer questions for you.
Answer that.
Are they both dead?
Yeah.
One person is deceased. We know that.
Which one?
We don't know names right now. What would really help us is there another person? Who's this other person?
Which one is deceased?
Like I said, we don't know the names. So Chris and I are over here. We're not over there. I don't have a picture of them. Things are happening kind of quickly. So if you think you can kind of help us save somebody, we'd really appreciate that. Is there another person we should be looking for?
Yeah, where's?
Is he in a hotel room somewhere?
Yeah.
Do you know which floor, which hotel room?
Wait a minute. You said one person is deceased?
One person's deceased, yeah.
Was that the one that was in the lobby?
I don't know. Like I said, we want to sit and we want you to kind of explain things to us. That's why we're here. You know, you're the person, you're the important person right now that's going to be able to fill in these things for us. So
You just have to tell me which one, and I'll tell you.
I guess the lobby. But I don't know. I don't want to give you. I don't want to give you any bad information.
You gotta tell me which one.
Well, Are they both men? Is it one different than the other? Can you help me out?
No, they're not. They're both men.
They're both men. So one man's deceased. That's all I know, and I don't want to say which one it is because I don't know. And that's the God's honest truth. I wouldn't blow smoke at you. I don't know.
Where'd you find the body at?
I don't know. We're not over there.
You know, we're so early in this right now.
If you want me to answer anything, tell me where you found the body.
It's so difficult. We can't figure out where the body is. I'm sitting over here. I'm here with you trying to get all this information. This is the important stuff. So is there a body in the lobby?
If you're saying someone's deceased.
In the lobby.
What am I being charged with?
I haven't said you're being charged with anything. I think what would help us is if we just kind of started at the beginning and tried to understand what happened here. And that's what I think you were the important person here to tell us that. Were you staying at the hotel?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Were you there by yourself?
No.
Okay. Who else were you there with?
One of my friends.
Okay. All right. What's his name?
He admits to killing Nathan. Turns out they had been in a romantic relationship. But things went south when Nathan confessed to Theodore that he slept with a girl who was apparently Nathan's ex, and said that by being there with him, he feels like he is cheating on her. Basically, Nathan was telling Theodore that they were done. Theodore said that the anger and hurt over the breakup built up until he just snapped. But it doesn't end there. The cops uncover something even more chilling. They find another victim, 60-year-old David Hanford. David had checked into the hotel with Theodore that same day. David had no idea what was going on. When the cops find him, he's dead too. Theodore admits he was worried David would try to stop him from going through with his plan, and it gets worse. He also reveals he was furious at Nathan for ending their relationship, and that rage pushed him even further. So, fast forward to November 2022. Theodore pleads guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. He gets 2 life sentences without parole. No chance for release.
I stand in this court today taking full responsibility for what I did.
Theodore Lucky was unlucky in love, he told the court.
And now, he's serving time at the New Hampshire State Prison. It's a wild, tragic story. Imagine being chased with a machete that's terrifying. This is one of those cases where nobody saw it coming, but it happened. And now, Theodore will have to face the consequences of what he did. On February 1st, 2012, Anchorage, Alaska was cloaked in bitter winter darkness when 18-year-old Samantha Koenig seemingly disappeared without a trace. That evening she was working the closing shift at the Common Grounds coffee kiosk. Surveillance footage showed her chatting with a customer, then suddenly being forced at gunpoint to comply with his demands. Within minutes, she was gone, dragged into the cold night by a masked figure. The abduction shocked Anchorage, a city known more for its wilderness and tight-knit community than random acts of violence. News spread quickly, and her disappearance soon made national headlines. For a city already accustomed to harsh winters, this was a new kind of cold, an invisible threat hiding in the dark. Samantha Koenig was born on August 30th, 1993 in Anchorage. Bright, outgoing, and known for her sharp humour, she carried a warmth that drew people in. She shared a close, inseparable bond with her father, James Koenig Jr., who often described her as his greatest source of pride. Samantha's passions ranged from animals and photography to music and the outdoors. She worked as a barista at Common Grounds, where she built rapport with strangers daily. Despite her youth, she harboured ambitious dreams, either to become a veterinarian or to serve her country in the Navy. Friends remembered her as the type of person who lit up a room, the kind who left lasting impressions on everyone she met. Her energy, laughter, and determination made her disappearance all the more unthinkable. At around 8:30 p.m, a man in a ski mask and dark clothing approached Samantha's kiosk. After ordering coffee, he pulled a handgun, ordered her to turn off the lights, and climbed inside. He zip-tied her wrists and marched her toward a waiting truck with its plates removed. Samantha pleaded, warning him that her father would soon arrive to pick her up, but the gun at her side silenced all hope of escape. He drove her away into the night, assuring her it was just a ransom, but the reality was far more sinister. That night, she was taken to a shed behind his home and held captive. Hours later, despite her pleas, she was strangled to death, her life cut short before the search for her even began. What started as a terrifying abduction would unravel into one of the most disturbing cases Alaska had ever seen.
Wild rocks. Are you planning on going back for that?
Despite her death, Samantha's family didn't yet know the truth. Nearly 3 weeks later, on February 24th, her boyfriend received a message from her phone directing him to a park. There, police discovered a ransom note accompanied by a chilling photo of Samantha. She appeared alive, propped against a wall, holding a local newspaper to prove the date. But the photo was a lie. Her killer had applied makeup, stitched her eyelids open, and posed her corpse. Believing she was alive, her devastated parents scraped together $5,000 of the $30,000 demanded. Detectives, meanwhile, wrestled with whether they were chasing a kidnapper still holding Samantha, or a manipulator covering something worse. The hope in that photo would prove to be one of the cruelest illusions in the history of ransom cases. As money trickled into Samantha's account, her debit card began to ping from ATMs across the country. First in Anchorage, then Arizona, New Mexico, and finally Texas. Each withdrawal showed a disguised man wearing hats and sunglasses. Detectives quickly zeroed in on a crucial detail. The same white Ford Focus appeared in the background of several surveillance images. By tracing the rental records, investigators linked the vehicle to Israel Keys, a contractor and father living in Anchorage. As the FBI followed his trail across multiple states, they realized this was not a ransom-driven kidnapper. This was a man carefully covering his tracks, moving across thousands of miles. What was at first a case about a missing teenager was turning into a hunt for a predator who seemed to know exactly how to evade capture. On March 13, 2012, a Texas state trooper pulled over the Ford Focus near the small town of Shepherd. Behind the wheel was Israel Keys. Inside his car was Samantha's debit card, her phone, disguises, and cash. Outwardly, Keys seemed unremarkable, a hard-working contractor, a father, and a quiet neighbour. But interrogation revealed something horrifying.
That holds the ammo in there? Perfect right thumbprint.
Yeah, right.
No, there is. I don't have the lab report back.
Wow. Uh-oh.
More CSI stuff.
Yeah, I'm impressed. Well, I'm disappointed in myself mostly, but I'm excited.
The lab examiner called me. I don't have the report yet. When I get the report, I'll show you the report. But I'm not doing it. It was on one of these two on the plastic tray inside.
Huh.
Like this must be plastic, like at the bottom view of the top of it.
Okay.
Slides into that cardboard sleeve.
Well, it was kind of
Samantha's abduction and murder were not an isolated act. Keys calmly admitted that she was only one of many victims. In fact, by his own estimate, Samantha was victim number 11. His ordinary life was a mask, hiding a decade-long trail of violence. The revelation was as shocking to the public as it was to law enforcement. Anchorage hadn't just lost a daughter, it had unknowingly harboured a serial killer. During extensive questioning, Keys outlined his crime with chilling precision. He described abducting Samantha, killing her within hours and storing her body in his shed while he left on a family cruise. Upon returning, he applied makeup to her corpse, staged the ransom photo, and disposed of her remains in Alaska's Matanuska Lake. Acting on his directions, FBI divers cut through thick spring ice to descend into the frigid waters. Hours later, they recovered Samantha's dismembered body, weighted to the lake bed. The grim discovery confirmed Keys' confession and provided her family with the closure they dreaded but desperately needed. Detectives, however, now faced an even more disturbing question. If Samantha was number 11, who were the others, and would they ever be identified? Samantha Koenig's story is one of promise cut short, a vibrant young woman whose compassion and ambition were extinguished by a man who thrived on control and cruelty. Her family received closure, but not justice. Israel Keys never stood trial. While in custody, he confessed to multiple murders across the United States, hinting at victims police have yet to fully identify. In December 2012, before facing a courtroom, he committed suicide in his jail cell. His death left unanswered questions about the true scope of his crimes. To this day, Samantha's case is remembered not just for its tragedy, but as the thread that unraveled the secret life of one of America's most methodical killers. What should have been the beginning of Samantha's adult life instead became the moment that exposed a predator hiding in plain sight.